Hello there, everybody. Welcome here to tonight's action of the PS4 semifinals bout. I'm Beanies, joined alongside Pulse, and tonight we're going to be bringing you action between two of our top PlayStation 4 competitors here, Pulse.
Yeah, so for anyone that is just tuning in or curious as to what's going on, this is GitGud North American season, and this is the console division, so PlayStation 4, like Beanie said. And the two teams that we're actually going to be bringing you tonight are the second and third seeds, KFP versus Goose My SR.
Yep, and tonight's matchup will be starting out on Oasis. But before we get to maps, let's take a look at how we are getting to the finals. Not only do we have ourselves a semifinals matchup taking place right now, but on the other hand, we do have the other semifinals matchup happening where ADL is taking on Levers. And then the winner of tonight's match takes on the winner of ADL and Levers tomorrow night in our finals.
Yeah, and as far as the match tonight, actually, as far as pretty much all the top three teams, all these teams have at least 4 wins coming in. ADL actually sitting at a 4-0 since they had a bye the first week. But KFP and Goose My SR are both teams that have gone 4-1. And this matchup has actually occurred back in the first week of the PS4 brackets. So KFP actually ended up taking a 3-1 win that time. Let's see if they can pull it out again.
Yeah, I mean, you should. The big thing to point out there, Pulse, is that did happen way back in week 1. So there's a lot of time that we could have seen some changes come through, and not only in terms of players, personnel or individual growth, but the game has changed a lot as well. I mean, recently we've been going through the holy war of Genjis on Genjis, and even though nerfs may be coming in, it feels like we're going to be seeing a lot of him tonight. So aside from that, Pulse, what do you think we'll be seeing come out from for these players?
I mean, I have to kind of go by what I've been seeing on the team sheets, which is a lot of stuff that we haven't seen so far, right? Like there's a lot of points in Sigma. One team is really preferring Ashe Genji as a duo, however, the other team has an Ashe Genji and as sort of the one role. So it's something that these teams are both hopefully just going to be playing to their strengths and rolling out as is. There's a little bit difference between how people play Overwatch on PC versus console because it's just the limitations of the platform, or like how people approach it with a controller versus with the mouse and keyboard. So it's really up to how these teams want to play this game and take their tempo.
Yep, exactly. And the name of the game here on Oasis is going to be this first map of I want to. Is it City Center? No, it's not City Center. It's Garden. There's University, City Center, and it's always that other map. That's how I learn most King of the Hill maps, to be honest with you. I learned 2 out of 3, and then the third one is always the other map. I have Night Market and Control Center for Lijiang, and then there's always the other one. Oasis, University, and City Center, the other one.
Yeah, pretty much, right? Like there's always just that weird one going in. But
Exactly.
There's actually one sub that we didn't really bring up, but Woeful Jesse will be coming in on flex support for Goose My SR tonight. So that one sub may have a whole world of difference, but we do see the Pharmacy come out very early on from KFP, and that's not too much of a surprise. Gardens has always been a Pharma map on console, on PC, what have you, but we do see an interesting rotation that's not very common coming out.
Oh no, the full boob coming in from Yoshi, taking down Speedy's Reinhardt, and the rotations that were coming in looked so promising to start out there, but I mean, once Speedy gets knocked off, any team losing their main tank, they're going to have to go back to the drawing board.
Yeah, and that's a good rotation to do if you're fighting into a Pharah, but not when the other team has a ball that can get that free boop. So instantly you see the swaps coming out. No more Symmetra from Frosted Toast. Now moving over to that Genji. And they're just going to have to fight this head on from the main entranceway. Now the Kree and the Sigma really are going to be the ones responsible for dealing with this Pharah right now.
Yeah, and Pharah is getting closer and closer to that ultimate. Taking a look at the top of your screens now, the top 2 ultimates here for the side of KFP are going to be PCW and Yoshi, as unfortunately Radar will be going down to a nice pin from Speedy there, starting off the fight. Hopefully going to be a nice little comeback here by Goose Squad, but unfortunately a little ball is going to be thrown down the smackdown onto them. It's not going to be causing too much of a distraction for the meantime, though, as by the looks of it, Frosted Toast and MC DJ, both of which going to be lighting up the kill feed. DPS having their way and really showing off what they can do in the hands of these competent players.
Yeah, now the ball is just coming out. Yoshi Habs just rolling around point, really building up percentage. Not much else, but Percentage is all you need on control. Finally taken down by a Ryan Firestrike. 60%, 59%, close enough. And building for KFP, not a bad start. You honestly probably would have liked to hold on a little bit more, but you didn't have to really invest anything in the last fight. And you stalled out the clock quite a bit. Now PCW going to be looking for a barrage to enter this point, get in somehow. There's a lot of space denying tools now from KFP, and they can really use them how they please.
Yeah, and the first tool that's going to be used actually will be the mines being dropped there by Ham, and Yoshi going to be laying the groundwork here for possibly a retake on the side of KFP if they can play around Joe Marvel's Blade right now. The Blade's going to come out, and they're going to have to get a lot of value from this. Not going to find any because PCW takes all the value for themselves, wholesale shopping it, taking it out right through the scanner, and with only Joe Marvel left standing, it's going to be a cleanup on aisle 4 here for the side of Goose.
Yeah, and a little bit of late Sagar into Speedy too means that they'll just get some free percentage. Again, a very quick flip and not a whole lot invested from the defending team. So now it's going to be Goose My SR's turn to use their tools, try and get in, find a way. They have both tank ults, and Frosted Toast is getting very close to that Blade. But with an 80% for KFP right now, they have to make a play here and fast.
Yeah, they really do. KFP is getting closer and closer to that 100% marker, and when you have this kind of time bomb ticking here, it can really get in your head. So Goose is going to have to try and fight against that here, and the first thing they're going to do to deal with that will be this Gravitic Flux only finding one member, and the Transcendence counters that out. PCW, yet again, opening up the fight in a big way, gonna find the elimination on the one, but then the Blade comes out from Frosted Toast, and it's gonna be the only thing left standing here for Goose My SR, as it all is going to be left in the dust here. Beautifully done by the side of PC, and now, or excuse me, KFP, and now with only one member left standing here for Goose, it's just gonna be delaying the inevitable pulse. You know, you can drop a shatter, get a few little stats padded here and there, but at the end of the day, man, it's going to be 1-0 going over to the side of KFP.
And a relatively convincing 1-0 too. Like 140 is honestly pretty one-sided. The pace was a little bit slower since there were no Lucios in, so keep that in mind. But just there was only really one fight lost for KFP, and it's because they just decided to lose it more or less. They didn't invest any ultimates. They had lost an early pick, and they just stalled it out for time, and it ended up working beautifully. They will have to make some changes because I don't see ball playing very well on University. Like, that's never really been considered a ball map. And we do see the double shield coming out very early on, so that's not too surprising. But it looks like KFP will make a couple comp switches.
Yes.
It is the Ryan Zarya versus double shield. Speedy Gamers and Dan are going to have to find some value on this Ryan Zarya if you're going to want to work into a double shield, especially into a Genji Echo.
Exactly, that's the big thing there. They have the Echo coming out, and you know, Echo can be dealt with by some flex tanks. You know, you think of Sigma, you think of Diva, you think of even Roadhog, but Zarya and Reinhardt are definitely the two lowest on the totem of being able to deal with such a long-range versatile hero. You know, she can really just be a nuisance there, cause some issues for Ashe, and if Frosted Toast can't handle that pressure, it's going to be some big issues there for Goose. But when MC DJ opens up the fight for your team there, it's going to be a nice little point take here for the side of Goose, and that first round is already in the past for them.
Yeah, the Junkrat took down the Orisa very early on, and the Echo is taken out on Joe Marvel's way out. So now, percentage building, this Ryan Zarya is working very lovely right now for the side of Goose My SR. They have point control, they have presence, they have a very early 20% already building. And there's no ultimates on the board. The closest is going to be Moira's, which is sitting at 75, but it's a Moira. Like, it builds fast for a reason.
Exactly. Jesse will have that ultimate available, but as you said, not going to be able to do too much work with it if you're not in the right situation. You can't really create too many openings there with just a Coalescence. We see just a Nano Boost, though, thrown down there on the radar gun. And Sigma, not always the best target for this, especially when Joe Marvel gets dropped on the other side of the fight here. KFP gonna have to try and back up to deal with this Coalescence as it comes out. But Pulse, to your point, Coalescence came out, no value found from that ultimate. And then the Gravitic Flux actually sets up Joe Marvel here. And when that Genji gets that first elimination, it's just gonna be one. Oh my god, what? What? What?
MC DJ in the back, building up a tire the whole time. Even pulls out the taunt for a little BM there towards the end, but the tire is what won that. Like, It got very dicey as soon as Speedy Gamers fell on that Reinhardt, but the tire is there to save the team. Now it's 75% in building for Goose My SR, and they have all the check marks on the board. They control the flow of this fight. They will have to fight into a supercharger though.
PCW will get res, so no issues with getting dropped there by Frosted Toast. Just not going to have that resurrect cooldown here, and with only one fight left here to try and retake the point, losing Joe Marvel is not how you're going to want to start that one out. Bob comes out, a sweeping Reinhardt gets sent to his grave, as PCW here actually on the back of Bob's plays, actually going to open up the door here for Kung Fu Pandas. And now with the rest of the team just holding down this bunker, and only a Moira looking like she's just dancing a little do-si-do around the point. She's gonna have to just try her best to get back to spawn, help her team, and PCW helping KFP retake this point.
Yeah, actually, that was a very close fight, but you're gonna have to cover for me for a second, Beanies.
Oh, okay, well, as we have Reinhardt trying to just make his way towards the point, just having to throw a little fire strike in the point. Maybe he's going to get a little elimination, but the nail blade will come out, and that's what matters, because the deflect is going to be used, and he was so patient with that dragon blade, and you're going to see the value for that. 2 eliminations coming off of Joe Marvel, and I cannot commend him enough for how patient he was. He got the nano boost. He didn't go in right away and just throw away his life. He used the deflect, he calculated out, and now his team is going to have yet another opportunity to hold out the point until, oh my gosh, again, MCDJ brings out a tire that turns the entire fight, and for the sake of this round, the entire match on its head here, taking the point back for Goose My SR, and now Kung Fu Pandas are going to have to just take this to round 3 and see if they can make up for this lost map.
Yeah, and with the wick burning down, it is in fact MCDJ coming out as the MVP of that map with the 2 tires. Very quick flips, very good save early on with that 4K, and with 100 to 56 being the final score of University, that was a pretty much a mirror of the initial map of Gardens. 1-1 going to City Center now. It's for all of the money on this point. Like, you saw some adjustments come out from KFP on that last map. It absolutely just did not work in their favor whatsoever. The Junkrat, the Ryan Zarya, just a little too well suited for University for KFP to deal with. Now it's going to be entirely up. It looks like it is going to be up to Goose My SR to continue this momentum, because we do see the exact same things that came out on Garden coming back. Now you're going to have to deal with Yoshi Hab's Ball again. You're going to have to deal with PCW's Far again. And I think those are heroes that this team wanted to be playing a little bit more, and they just couldn't play them on University.
Yeah, and you know, over to the other side, we look at Goose's composition. They are really trying to protect Frosted Toast. They need to play around this McCree, and if Frosted Toast goes down in a fight, you literally give the entire airspace over the PCW. So keeping up this McCree and making sure McCree gets a lot of value feels like that's going to be the name of the game here, as the first fight on the point will break down. As by the looks of it, we do have XD winner. She's going to get the first elimination onto Yoshi, striking first blood here on City Center, and with only Genji dashing in alone, he's going to get out of dodge just for a moment. Joe Marvel, no issues surviving for that time, and Jesse, unfortunately, does not win that 2 versus 1 very often.
Yeah, that's a rough fight to be fighting as Ana, but now it's the DPS starting to turn this fight. The ball does come back in. Yoshi Hab's getting the slam onto MCDJ, and the kill feed's all blue. This, what looked like a very rough start with the ball dropping very early on from KFP. You know, ball just rolls back in halfway into the fight and is able to take the 3rd kill, but 4%.
PCW good. Taking down Danburn. Nice little boop off the map. You gotta love to see it. Just delaying this push even more, giving them more time to regroup and see if they can, I guess, take back this point, really, because for the most part, you're gonna have to play around that McCree, I think, and you have the high noon. But PCW with the barrage has shown a lot of... Oh, never mind. PCW is not going to have any chance of getting that barrage off, because MCDJ takes down 1, takes down 2. Both of them are going to get dropped. The Far of Mercy combo picked out of the sky. And now with Frosted Toast left up here alone, he gets the high noon. He takes out Hammond, and a late Dragon Blade comes in alone. You got to wonder what Joe Marvel's thinking right there, because you have a lot of enemies to look at and no hopes of getting an elimination.
Yeah, that might have actually been an attempt to get out rally or something, or swapping. You know, swapping works.
I'm swapping.
Hopefully that actually goes through, so we can applaud the great Dragon Braid usage. But however, a very quick flip again. These teams are having a little bit of trouble holding on to point for a little more than 40 or 45% at a time. But PCW will have to try and find a way to get this barrage in through a double hit scan defense, which is very difficult.
Yeah, that is really difficult, but PCW finds a way, gets two. Both tanks are eliminated here for Goose My SR, and now with both DPS members of Kung Fu Pandas going to be lighting up the kill feed, Yoshi and Radar, both of which finishing off their counterparts there, and PCW getting one as well, gonna be evening out this point and actually taking a lead. And you know, Pulse, this has been our closest point yet here on Oasis. It feels like map 1 goes the way of Kung Fu Pandas, map 2 goes the way of Goose My SR, and now they finally have that perfect even ground, just constant back and forth battles.
Yeah, and again, it was around 40% in which it flipped. Now Speedy Gamers is going to look for a shatter, but ends up getting solo grabbed, but saved by the rally.
Yeah, the rally does keep him up, and now he actually runs into the mines and gets hit in the backside by Radar Gun. So once you lose that main tank, you're going to have to play a lot harder of a game here. But Frosted Toast up for the challenge, takes down PCW. A very offensive Moira there coming out from Woeful Jesse, not going to find any eliminations, actually will be dropped for their troubles, and MC DJ gonna get very low and will get picked up there by Joe Marvel, and with a Graviton Surge coming in late, going to find 2 eliminations off the back of that, just as KFP will hit 99%. So this Blade coming out doesn't feel very necessary as they have the overtime, and Joe could have just saved that to retake and win the map.
Yeah, and very similar to Joe's last Blade as well on the Genji, where they just pull out at the end of the fight, not quite paying attention to the kill feed probably as much as you should be when you want to invest the Blade. But again, the McCree, PCW takes out the counterpart very early on. This might be a free fight win for KFP.
Yeah, Frosted Toast down. You have no high noon, you have no left clicks, you have no hit scan. The Shatter will stop them for a moment and actually aid in eliminating Yoshi's Hammond, but a Resurrect is just going to eliminate any chance of that being an advantage. King Scar keeping the Hammond up and well. And now with the Valkyrie in the sky, the damage boost is going to come through, and they're going to have to turn tail and hide because Yoshi back in action is ready to run through them, and Yoshi is feeling very good alongside Crazy Asian, but Frosted Toast may have had a chance to keep his team alive. Unfortunately, it's going to be a response from PCW and Yoshi, both of which finishing off their counterparts, securing Oasis here for PCW as just only one member left to fight off here, but Speedy Gamer can't do too much. The Doomfist and Lucio are here for the stalls, but you just got to think this is only delaying the inevitable now, Pulse, because Kung Fu Pandas, they're looking pretty to take this Oasis map.
Yeah, especially with the Transcendence coming out. The Doomfist has a chance to take down the Kree, but PCW does stay alive through the combo. And now with the mines, with the Lucio, with the Doomfist all dropping, this is all KFP's map. This is their match to lose right now, and they just need to deal with the rallying Brigitte in the middle of point.
Oh, man.
They really take this.
It's always that rallying Brigitte, but they managed to take her down, and that will be KFP winning out here on Oasis and moving themselves into a 1-0 series lead.
And honestly, despite the first 2 maps, that third match running it a lot closer, I think both these teams really decided to start playing what they want to and how they were comfortable. The tire was disgusting.
That hurt me watching. I felt that.
Just walks up behind your entire team. Ooh, what's this? Drops a 4K tire. But, I mean, you saw it, how the match started out. PCW really wants to run a Pharah, and MCDJ looks like he really wants to run a Junkrat right now. So if you let them get in their comfort zones like that and do that, you end up maps like Gardens or University where it's like 100 to 40, right? Yeah. But on the third map, when you started seeing all this back and forth, and even the double hit scan coming out to deal with PCW on a map that allows double hit scan like City Center, it was a much closer fight. And even though there was a lot of fast turnarounds, each team built up around 40%, lost the fight. The other team built up 40%, lose the fight. There were a lot of these quick flips that were coming in that ended up being in KFP's favor just because they captured the point first, right? Yeah. And they forced the switches out early on, so they were just a leg up ahead in every single fight. But Goose My SR really gave them a run for their money there.
They definitely did. I mean, we saw the kind of work they could put in on that Junkrat favorite map. Unfortunately, though, as we're going to be heading into our next map, by the sounds and sights of it, it's going to be Junkertown. So even though it is the home base of Junkrat himself, it's not a map that usually lends to his style of play. And generally speaking, we didn't see any members of KFP or Goose SR's DPS lineups really bring out a sniper that we would see on a map like Junkertown. So it'll be interesting to see how they manage to whip out those unique hit scans.
Yeah, and I will say, like, it's worth noting that Oasis isn't a map where you normally see long-range hit scan play like Widow. But we did see both McCree and Ash come out from Goose SR, and we did see a McCree come out. So I don't doubt that these teams have an option available, especially among the Ash. Ash with a Mercy pocket is very deadly on Junkertown. But it gets to a point, especially on like second or maybe on sections of third point, you could get into a scenario where you would want to run a Junkrat if it's something that like your team is kind of playing a little bit closer towards. Like if you're running an Orisa on second point, yeah, I don't think a Junkrat would be too out of place. But I think the bigger thing to note would be that assuming Goose SR rolls out on this Ash on their first point defense, there's almost no universe in which I see KFP trying to run a Pharah into that on first point Junkertown, right? Like it's just so little aerial cover for a Pharah to play that it would be hard to find value.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, as you progress through Junkertown, you really start to close in more and more. From point A through point C, it just kind of, the walls just get closer and closer, and the roof just starts coming down on you. And by the time you're on third point, you really can't justify running a hero like Pharah nearly at all. I mean, at that point, you're really controlled a lot by the mobile heroes, the verticality based heroes. You got your Hanzo, you got your Genjis and whatnot, but there's going to be a lot of Junkertown to see before we can even get to that third part of the map, because this first part lends itself to some interesting strategies. And Pulse, last time you and I were on broadcast together, I talked about how much I love seeing the Bastion come out on the side of first point defense here. And I mean, even though they're not on defense yet, the fact that I am seeing a Bastion right now leads me to think that I may be a happy camper once we flip sides.
I would not be surprised at all if they keep this Bastion, especially with the double shield that is.
Yeah, look at that.
That's something that's not uncommon at all, especially in Junkertown. Joe Marvel is highlighting the Widow right now, which we haven't seen it yet, but I'm going to believe, right? Like,
Frosted, though.
It's not too surprising. Frosted Toast is out on that Torbjorn Ash, so these are picks that I really honestly can say that I fully expected on a defensive Junkertown, right? Like the Ash Mercy gives you a very good long-range hit scan option with a one-shot potential. The Torb is just a good thing to shut down a potential Tracer or Genji, which we're not going to see, but as long as this Ryan Sigma don't waste their shield too much, they should be able to stop this cart at this first corner. But the Ryan gets pulled! That's huge!
Oh, that's massive right there. The Reinhardt getting pulled is free pickings there for PCW. And one of the biggest parts of that, their Pulse, is the Resurrect is so risky. And they do get it in somehow still. And actually, what? Somehow the fight just turns on a head, and out of nowhere, Frosted Toast leading the charge alongside MC DJ, taking back the point control here for Goose SR. And now KFP is going to have to reevaluate their strategy, because once Bastion's off that point, it's really difficult to get him back on it.
Yeah, and if I'm Speedy in that fight, honestly, I'd just be typing baited in chat right now. Because what a play. Like, he gets pulled off from the Orisa, which normally doesn't happen, but the res was out of this world, and they just capitalized on all the team turning around and shredded the entire backline. So they were able to capitalize it. MC DJ with a huge dynamite to start that fight, though.
MC DJ was just laying in wait. The patience paid off. But once you throw out that dynamite and everyone knows where you are, Joe Marvel can just line up those sights and take you down. Speedy Gamer, though, responding with the elimination onto their main tank counterpart. So even though we have the trades coming in, it's still a stalemate here in the offense, just unable to find any progression on the point here. This corner is just so hard to break when it's being held by this double shield combo.
Yeah, the Halt goes a little bit high, but they won't be able to find anything. It is Speedy, though, that will get up to their ultimate first this fight. And sitting at 95, swinging, but shield completely broken. You got to retreat a little bit there. just so you don't get taken down. It is Joe Marvel on the flank to find the first pick, though.
Yeah, Joe Marvel, a nice little crossfire to be found right now, coming on the backside, going to be forcing everyone to change their LOS, and even though you're not landing headshots on stream, you are landing the eliminations, my friend. Joe Marvel picking up the body shot kills, and they get the job done no matter what. PCW now trying to one-up his counterpart, getting into melee range here on this Hanzo. Not going to find too much success from that, as the shields have found their way back to the point, and actually the nano boost gonna be thrown down alongside a shatter, a gravitic flux. Everything is just being used right now by Goose my SR, and no eliminations to be found for their troubles. They actually lose a member after that. 2 members. Joe, what are you doing?
Yeah, it was the ultimate use, but they only get space for a brief amount of time to push into the baited Widow's sight line. So now they use so much and get so little with it. That's point A taken for KFP. They deserved every part of that point A take.
Yeah, seriously. Joe Marvel, though, getting a little too risky here. You don't want to get into a 1v1 against a Moira. Jesse getting a little...
You don't.
Exactly. Consolation prize right there going over to Jesse. You know, you lost the point. You had to go back to second point to play defense, but you get a nice little elimination there for your trouble. So hopefully going to lead to this defense being a little more successful than the last, but not going to find any value really from that Molten Core, as Yoshi takes down Frosted Toast in the middle of that ultimate. And then with a Gravitic Flux, not getting any eliminations either here. It's 2 ultimates being used without much value at all. So generally, both these teams really need to step up the game with how they're using these ultimates, and MC DJ showing us exactly how that should be done, placing Bob in a fantastic spot, leading to a beautiful team wipe here by Goose.
Yeah, and what a team fight win that was. That was such an important one after so many ultimates were used. Not only do they get the space and more or less get the ultimate bank reset, with the exception of the support ult, the double support ult from the side of the offense right now with the Transcendence and the Baptiste window, but now the defense is actually in a good position to kind of hold this. They have the positioning, they have the high ground they need. The Orisa Sigma, more importantly, has to actually push through and drop onto cart at some point here to actually start contesting, and you can't really do that easily into an Ashe Echo just camping high ground.
Yeah, that's not an easy task to deal with, especially when MCDJ is feeling themselves as much as they are. Yoshi, though, going to be the first one striking blood in the kill feed there as Speedy Gamer gets taken down, but Frosted Toast dropping Joe on that Genji, a crucial member of the DPS lineup, no longer to be found, and Frosted Toast trying to take the 1v1, cannot beat Crazy Asians, and Yada, absolutely nuts play coming in from the flex support here as Dan Burn responds with an elimination of their own, and yet again, Goose is just playing around and off the back of MCDJ on this Ashe. A beautiful elimination, and even though PCW picks up MCDJ, the defense is still going to hold, and we only have a minute and a half left here.
Yeah, and the cart stalled very far into Junkertown B, and Joe Marvel might actually get caught out trying to get back to their team right here, but
yeah,
that's an unfortunate stall. Joe Marvel does actually have Dragon Blade, so as long as we don't see a repeat of the blades from Oasis City Center, I think this could be a potential point B cap from them. There's no real answer to it right now, especially since there's no Zen on the field anymore. Yep. The closest you're going to get is XD Winter's Valkyrie at best, but with a Flux coming through, finding quite a few tanks and putting out a lot of pressure, you're going to see the offense be able to just start pushing in here.
Oh man, Frosted Toast. Frosted Toast was so close to that ultimate. Does get the resurrect there, so that's absolutely massive. XD Winter helping keep this team alive. And then when we have the Dragon Blade actually coming out alongside Sigma, but no eliminations will be found off that ultimate. And you touched on how crucial that Dragon Blade was going to be, Pulse, and they don't get anything for their trouble. They're actually going to lose the fight that they used the Dragon Blade in. And they only have 26 seconds left to recontest. Goose my SR is sitting so pretty here on defense.
Yeah, and despite, like, they don't really have any ultimates for next fight. Speedy Gamers does have a chance to get up to a shatter. It's sitting at 65%, but even with the late stagger kill onto PCW, all you have is an Orisa Bongo and literally no one on your team that can get to cart. So someone's going to have to make a break for here and likely die in the process.
Exactly. I mean, it's really just take one for the team, but no one can even choose to give their life for the cause. They can't even get to the point. Dan getting an elimination there just to shear things up here on the defensive side, and Goose my SR with a stellar performance here on Junkertown defense. No other way about it.
Yeah, and there were plenty of opportunities where we were watching this, and there could have been a massive play or even a very early take on point A, or plenty of opportunities for KFP to get further than they did, but they just ended up falling a little bit short every time. Like when you saw Speedy Gamers on the Ryan get halted down, the entire team kind of gets baited into going for the res, don't finish off the Mercy that's resing, and end up losing what would have been a very easy fight had that not happened. On point B, you see a lot of ultimates being kind of thrown or wasted, or even getting way too aggressive on Speedy Gamers, who again is playing Ryan very aggressively and often without a team supporting it. But because you're using so many resources on this one Ryan, you're setting yourselves up to lose in these long fights. And the long fights, honestly, on Escort especially, where defense just need one toe on the point to keep it from getting stalled out, long fights favor the defensive team so much.
Yeah, I mean, okay,
They're going for it.
There's no Bastion. But
There's no Bastion, but you see Yoshi going for it.
Doesn't matter. I love it. I am all for it. They heard my request and they are pleasing the people. Let's see what comes of it, as they're all going to drop down now. It's going to be, nobody's going to see this coming. And the sleep does get put down, an anti-grenade, but PCW is going to be in a perfect spot to get Woeful Jest. Make that 2 for PCW, as Kung Fu Pandas are really just showing off this strategy's usage. And even though they're losing one member, the Speedy Gamer, you gotta think of this defense already as a success because of that one.
Yeah, you definitely get the early ultimate advantage, but you do lose your second tank. So now they're going to be playing at this first corner, and these purples have been absolutely amazing by Jesse coming through on this Ana.
But yeah, exactly.
But the one so much space. Look at how far back they have to back up.
Exactly. The only issue is both of them haven't led to direct elimination. So even though they are very good, you need to sure up those kills to make them truly impactful. Now, Bob will get thrown down. Dan going to be taking down that Bob, but as the amplification matrix is used, it's going to put this payload at a standstill here on the corner.
Yeah, and a standstill, again, is what you need as defense. You want to drag out these fights. Radar Gun is building up to that bongo, but you need to stay alive, and right now you're just tanking so much damage.
Exactly. You don't want to be taking too much of that. Even though you are a beefy robot, you got to put that shield down, and you got to make sure that supercharger is nice and safe, as the DPS here are trying their best to just lay it down. But with KFP having to deal with a nice coalescence here, and MCDJ getting MCDJ's way, it's going to be all that she wrote for this first point defense, as Goose My SR finishes off their opponents here and is going to push their way to the first point of Junkertown.
Yeah, and by the time this rolls in, the offense is going to be looking at around a 4.5 minute time bank. Yeah. 4.5 minutes to complete 1 point is kind of insane.
Not
so it's going to be up to KFP right now to really step up Junkertown and find an answer to what they're dealing with, because they were so reliant on PCW's far early on, and you can't really run it right now, especially with everyone walking out early. And while PCW has been pretty solid on this Ashe, they've just not been finding the same type of value.
Yeah, Joe Marvel there trying to just cause a little issue there for MCDJ. Not going to get any major cooldowns off for that one. A nice hook, though, going to be found there, and that's going to lead to the elimination of Radar Guns, and that's another kill coming out for Frosted Toast. And with Joe Marble using this Dragon Blade to try and keep the team alive, it's only going to lead to one elimination. XD Winner on the other side of the coin will be taking down that Genji, a support player's dream. MCDJ with the dynamite, the left clicks, it's all just going to lead to one single thing, and that's going to be a Junkertown victory here for Goose My SR.
Yeah, and there's not much you can do about this if you're the defense. The blade comes out, gets any of this hope of staggers, coming back to cart, takes down the Tracer, takes down the tank, and Goose My SR with a very, very, very convincing Junkertown. I don't think there's any way going about it. KFP need to take this one back to the dugout and really consider what happened in that map.
Yeah. MCDJ getting a chance to shine here. Showing off the accuracy with this Ashe. Beautifully done there. With the coalescence at his backside, keeping him sustained. And, you know, MCDJ really was just the man of the hour this entire matchup. That Ashe was so deadly. You always had to be aware of where MCDJ was. And we saw it on their defense. I mean, starting out early on, MCDJ with the solid snake dynamite coming in, leading to an elimination, and that just really set the tone for what that Ashe was going to do for Goose My SR.
And I honestly agree with pretty much everything you just said. I think right now the big takeaways from KFP are to look at their DPS lineup, because right now PCW has really shown their worth on the Pharah and even honestly quite a few good Ashe plays. But one thing that has been very consistent across pretty much all maps are Joe Marvel really wants to play this Genji, but has been very lacking, especially in Blades. Like he's been getting a lot of dash resets and actually been in fights a lot. But part of the reason you play Genji, actually most of the reason you play Genji, is for that Blade, and pretty much all of them have fallen flat so far. So right now I think that's a big weak link in their strategy that they really need to look at and address.
Yeah, exactly. And, as we go to break, we're going to have to wonder, is KFP going to be able to answer that challenge? And is Joe Marvel going to be able to step up and make his Dragon Blades really count? These questions and more will be answered after this break. We're back, everybody. Welcome back to here at EHE Overwatch. We have ourselves a hell of a matchup here between Goose My SR and KFP. I'm Beanies. joined alongside Pulse, and we are going into map number 3 of this first to 3 semifinal, where after an Oasis and a Junkertown were split 1-1, the tiebreaker of this series is going to be taking place on Blizzard World.
Yeah, and as a quick recap / introduction for anyone that is just tuning in, this is Elo Hell's GitGud North American Season 5, and this is the console division, actually. So both these teams are the second and third seed from our PS4 tournament. We are looking at KFP versus Goose My SR. KFP actually is the team that had the higher seed coming into this, seed 2. But right now, they're looking like they have a few more weaknesses that they have to consult on the drawing board right now. Earlier before break, we were talking about how Joe Marvel's Genji, specifically the blades, were falling a little bit short, and that led to a little bit of a devastating Junkertown loss. But on Oasis, KFP was really looking very strong early on. So now going into Blizzard World, I think we have a lot of the same questions to ask. This will be a situation where we could potentially see another Pharah come out from KFP. That's something that they've looked very strong on in their DPS lineup, and it's caused a lot of issues for Goose My SR. So if they can run that or do something along those lines or use that to their strength, they have an opportunity. They do need to be worried about MC DJ, who's looked very strong on the Ashe and Junkrat, and that's caused them so many issues so far.
Well, Junkrat has quite an enjoyable time here on Blizzard World. I know for a fact that first point, Junkrats love to just hold left click on PC, force of habit for myself, but hold that trigger on console and really just let those grenades fly. But, so far, it doesn't look like we're going to be getting any Junkrat play, and justifiably so. MC DJ hovering over that McCree. I mean, when you put on a performance like you did on Ashe, why not flex over the other hit scans? Show us all the heroes you have in that pool.
Yeah, it's not too surprising. I believe the McCree did come out from MC DJ at some point on Oasis, so it's something they have played.
I believe City Center.
Yeah, there was definitely a McCree and Ashe on City Center for sure. But looking at this, we do see the ball come out again from Yoshi, which has been relatively strong. We do see a fallback to this ball Zarya Mercy Zen, which they've been reliant on pretty strong so far. PCW will be coming out on the Ashe for the defense, but they're going to actually have to deal with a Sombra coming out from MC DJ with that late switch. Yeah, and it's not a half dive. This is a very interesting way they built this composition.
Yeah, so they have, they have the Genji and they have the Winston, which are traditional dive, but that Sombra and that Sigma both are going to have a little bit of an issue to really help those two out by the looks of it. And Joe Marvel striking first blood there onto his counterpart of Frosted Toast. So both Genjis dueling it out, only one comes out alive, and this offense is going to have to take a second to breathe because they're at that disadvantage. For two members now, both DPS gets dropped by Joe Marvel, taking things into his own hands. May have been listening to us before we went to break and wanted to show us that he came to play.
Yeah, absolutely. And Joe Marvel hasn't really been a slouch in the mid fights. Been getting these dashes, but again, it comes down to those blades, which we'll see coming up very quickly now that Joe's sitting at a wonderful 85%, only a minute in for a Genji blade. This is going to be a fast retake, but with Speedy Gamers making the switch over to Ryan, with Woeful Jesse at a nano boost, there's some options for this offense. They are getting some of the health packs around Hack, and they do have the nano and coalescence, which can cause a lot of pressure onto a front line.
Yeah, a lot of pressure. I mean, the coalescence is the definition of pressure on that backline too, because no shield can stop that damage from coming in. But a Genji with a Dragon Blade is usually a really good answer to any kind of backline problems you can find. Unfortunately, that blade does not find any value. And, yet again, Joe Marvel, he may be getting these eliminations with the shurikens and the traditional fires, but yet again, that blade really just leaves something to be desired. So playing around his non-ultimate Genji is unique.
Yeah, and honestly, I can't fault them too much for that, just because there was the nano and the coalescence. So if any blade wasn't going to find value, it would have been that one. But
he gets a pass.
He gets
a hall pass.
It's on thin ice, Joe. Come on. Now, finally, the offense has the EMP, which is honestly probably the ult they've been waiting for this whole time. If you hack the ball, hack the Zenyatta, either of them should just be more or less just toast. I don't think MC DJ actually saw this Zenyatta walking that.
Yeah, that could be just a slight miss, but that'll have huge impact here. But it doesn't matter. You don't need to hack a Zenyatta when you kill him. So Zenyatta being eliminated right there takes that Transcendence out of play. But actually, both Resurrects are going to be used right there. So now the Transcendence is still going to be kept out of play because the hack comes through. A Graviton Surge is then used, and that was beautifully done right there by the defense. KFP delayed so well, and now they answer back perfectly.
Yeah, 1 minute left on the clock. This is a very good defense that they have set up so far. I do think they'd kind of want the Trans back, especially to deal with Dan's Gravitic Flux coming online. That is the one ultimate. That and actually the Genji Blade. They need to be very careful. There's no defensive answer to this. So the mines are going to have to be huge, or you're going to have to find something with this Bob, because otherwise you're just going to deal with a lot of offensive pressure coming out from Goose My SR.
Yeah, and that Graviton Surge from Radar Gun, which really separated the fight, could have been a blessing in disguise here for the offense if they can turn it into one. But with that mine coming down and Joe Marvel now having another opportunity at the blade, going to go into the backline and try and get a few eliminations. Does find one kill there, so gets a little bit of value off the blade. And now with the bubble keeping him safe, starts feeling himself a little bit, getting that ultimate charge up. And honestly, Pulse, with 10 seconds left, you just want to keep that pressure up, and with no Sigma left, and everyone else just scrambling to get to the point, the Nano Blade comes out very late, and I don't know if anyone's going to touch that point, but they do get to touch it in time. The defense still firmly in control with the Bob on the point, and the rest of Goose My SR just stretching at trying to get to the point. It's going to be a full hold coming out by KFP.
Yeah, and what a disaster for Goose My SR too. Dan ended up holding on to one Gravitic Flux for that entire offense and died before they had a chance to use it. So there were so many opportunities, especially towards the end, where all they needed to do was make sure they would stay alive and they could Gravitic Flux and Blade. And there wasn't a really good answer from the defense, but the staggers were too strong. Yoshi just rolling around on the ball, causing a lot of distress for all of Goose My SR, really. And just that sheer amount of chaos that came in made it so that the last minute and a half was very disorderly for Goose My SR, and they end up getting completely full hold. This is like the fullest hold too. It's not like, oh, they didn't cap A. They didn't even get a tick on A. So you roll out here, and I mean, I'm seeing things I like. Joe Marvel again on the Genji, PCW again on the Pharah, Yoshi again on the ball. Like, there's a real opportunity for them to just come in here and roll this. And you even see a couple other adjustments, like the Zenyatta Ana. Like, if they actually roll out with this, this is just playing for a Nano Blade or playing for a Nano Barrage. That's a very easy win condition. And with 4 minutes really to do whatever they want, I don't think this should be a difficult win for KFP.
Now,
This
Pulse,
would be an absolute miracle if Goose My SR hold this.
when you're in this unique position where you get the full hold and you know you only have a third of the point to take, it's very different than going into a blank slate offense and thinking you need to take the entire point. So how do you really approach something like this where you need only a third of your objective to win the whole map?
I mean, you can honestly just play for stockpiling ultimates. Like, it's entirely on the defense at this point to rotate their ultimates and make sure they don't overinvest in any fight. So if you can just play for 6 ultimates, then blow them all at the same time when you're on the offense, the defense can rarely hold a fight like that.
Well, we'll have to see if that can actually come true. It's easier said than done. I mean, that trigger finger when you have a juicy ultimate can really be hard to hold off of, and PCW has been a prime example of that. Those barrages we saw back on Oasis in map number 1 really lended themselves to being massive barrages, to say the least. I mean, multi-man kills coming in, so gonna have to try and find that same kind of flavor here. And Yoshi actually gonna find some of his own. One elimination there for Yoshi, taking down, actually Speedy Gamer took themselves down alongside Yoshi, so I guess hand in hand they just went down into the water together and just left the rest of their team to fight over the point.
And it is the Junkrat trying to go for a flank from MCDJ, but it is again PCW finding the picks that their team needs right now. Yoshi rolls back on ball just as Ryan gets back in, but the Zenyatta Transcendence is keeping everyone alive.
Yeah, now this trance is very aggressive, but understandably used, because, I mean, when you only have 1% of the point to take and you have this numbers advantage, you really just want pressure as much as you can, and that Transcendence and that Barrage and all these ultimates are going to equal one thing, and that is a 2-1 series lead for KFP.
Yeah, and I wouldn't say it's the cleanest series I've ever seen, but you know, you don't really need to be clean when you have 4 minutes to get 33%, and they just kept the pressure up, kept rolling around, and eventually Goose My SR is the first one to fall on Blizzard World. So now going to 4th map, this will be a 2 CP map if I can do my quick math correctly.
I believe that you are correct. If we go through every single map type, the only one left is that
Yeah, I'm not
well-known
proud of it.
2
I definitely
CP.
had to like think about it and like which one has. But it sounds like Hanamura will be the next pick.
Yeah. And I mean, something to touch on real quick is this is match point here, Pulse. This is KFP. If they win this map, they're going to leave the semifinals and walk straight into the grand finals.
Yeah, and I feel like some of their concerns were addressed too. So right now, it is entirely on to Goose My SR to show us something spicy. They have to take Hanamura.
Yeah, they do.
And I think they really would like to take it decisively too. Something along the lines of Junkertown. I don't know if Hanamura is the pick though. Like thinking about what KFP has been strong at, it's been Genji Pharah just in mid fights, winning the mid fight between that spam damage and what they've been doing. Whereas Goose My SR has really been strong on like the double hit scan, maybe the hit scan plus Junkrat. And unless they have a Symmetra strategy or an interesting like teleporting the Bastion strategy, Hanamura especially point A, to me is very strong for Pharah and Genji. Like there's a lot of airspace to play around. You can get good angles. B is a little bit harder for Pharah, but at that point you could be running Ashe or other things that we've seen. Where like if you're Goose My SR, I would have expected to go to like a Volskaya or something where it's very difficult to run a Pharah into a double hit scan, or you could run some Junkrat to an extent.
Yeah.
But I don't know if this is the map pick for me, honestly.
Yeah, that's where my head was going when you started talking about that. Was Volskaya Industries is a very good map for Junkrat, both point A and point B. Really, Junkrat has a lot of close walls that can aid in bouncing the bombs along and just really trap people, or better yet, cut people off with his traps. Unfortunately, Hanamura, a lot more open space. That first point definitely lends itself to that Pharah play, as you said. Second point opening up itself to the snipers and whatnot. And really, it's going to be up to the individual mechanical plays from these two separate DPS lineups to make the difference in this game.
Yeah, and I one thing I don't think that we've kind of talked about it, but I don't think we've given enough credit to is honestly Yoshi on this ball. The amount of distress that she's caused just in the backlines and the amount of resources that she's forcing out from Goose My SR has been very critical to helping Joe Marvel and PCW both get a lot of value. Like, if your Ashe is the one that has to like always be checking behind her shoulder to make sure that the ball's just not gonna like, oh my Washinderu on top of you, just like teleport behind you and like stab you in the back, then your Ashe has to play a lot more paranoid, right? Like, it's kind of scary.
And I mean, speaking of the ball, just very unsettling watching the ball jump up there. As I don't know if you guys caught that in the corner of your screen, but just a third-person perspective of just a circular object somehow hoisting itself into the air over and over again is a little unsettling. But you know what? I'll cross that bridge in therapy when we get there. Nonetheless, it is time for this to be Goose My SR's win. They need to get through Hanamura if they want any shot at making it to the grand finals of the PlayStation 4 tournament here at GitGud NA. And they're going to have to get through a very difficult raid boss in PCW's Pharah. But when you have Frosted Toast making plays like that to start off, it could be a little bit easier.
Yeah, so how do you find that Zen from that angle, Toast? Like, what are you doing? And with that entirely green light, and look at all of the kills coming in from the offense.
Oh man, that was such a satisfying headshot to land. And even though Yoshi does take down Frosted Toast, it's not going to matter. Frosted Toast is on cloud 9 and going to be sitting on point number 2 very shortly here as Goose My SR just steamrolled through Hanamura point A. And we may have just had our question answered, Pulse, of why they chose Hanamura.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely making me eat my words, and I'll take it. You proved us wrong. Go for it. But now this is going to be really difficult. Pushing into point B,
Yep.
They are still running this Pharah and Ashe actually, so they will have to try and find a way to get the Pharah inside of Hanamura point B, which can be a little bit of a task unless Frosted Toast just finds the Zenyatta again.
Well, that Zenyatta is going to have to play very safe here. And it's going to be a little bit easier because, you know, Frosted Toast not playing that Hanzo or that Widowmaker. So not going to have that one-shot potential on the Ashe. I mean, you know, it's not too far off from a one-shot on certain heroes, but nonetheless not available to her. So with Frosted Toast only going to be able, going to have to land 2 shots back-to-back, they can play this Zenyatta a little bit more aggressive, I think.
Yeah, and that's exactly what they're doing. You see the entire team trying to hold this high ground, but Speedy Gamers is a little terrified to walk in, especially with their own Ashe getting taken down like that.
Joe Marvel, Radar Gun, both finishing off eliminations here. A rocket boost into the ceiling as Yoshi takes down a skittish MC DJ, and now with the ball out here dancing around Mega, gonna get dropped very low, but that's just giving more ultimate charge over to his supports. Yoshi just being the great teammate that she is.
Yeah, and look at this. Because of that, Zenyatta is able to build up to a trans. So now any advantage the offense had is completely shut down because they can't use one free ult and get in without having to deal with the trans. And Yoshi just rolling through, getting up to it.
I mean, sometimes the best way in is right through the front door, you know? He just rolls right through the entire team, and now it's causing enough distraction where Joe Marvel can capitalize, and then the mines are dropped alongside the Graviton Surge, and that's all you need to hear, ladies and gentlemen. That combination is a death sentence. Radar Gun getting the eliminations on the kill feed, but everyone contributing to that fight win.
Absolutely, but I think the biggest thing for the defense there is that they used a lot of ultimates, right? Like, that was a wand fight. Joe Marvel got that early pick. You don't need to invest anything, and they invest Grav and Mines. And now, if you're looking at the offensive scoreline there, you see 6 check marks. That's really hard to deal with as a defense. Like, you can deal with it because you're the defending team, but what's your contingency here? You have 2 support ults and 6 ults to deal with.
I mean, you talked about on our previous map, sometimes you just need to count up all your ultimates, get 6, and use them at the same exact time. So we'll see if that can actually work in this case, because they have the tools. But even though you're equipped properly, sometimes there's malfunctions in the junctions, and MCDJ doing everything they can to make sure that no issues can arise. 2 eliminations before they are dropped by Yoshi. Speedy Gamer gonna get one as well, and every single ultimate has now been used by the offense, and they have been given some reward for their troubles, maybe going to take the whole point. You know what? Nobody's going to get there in time until a Doomfist shows up, and Joe Marvel getting 1 elimination could start a snowball effect here. Going to be very interesting to see if our defense can actually bounce back off that 1 pick.
Yeah, if Joe's on this flank, if he can find any more value on this tree, this could very easily turn into a lost fight. But with all of the kills going towards the red side right now, not quite taking down that Zarya fast enough for his own team.
Yeah, not hitting the shots, unfortunately, but PCW yet again comes back from spawn on the Doomfist, finds an elimination, breathing new life into the defense. And with 3 members of the defense here, they could put up a fight, but it's so hard. I mean, look at how much charge Dan Zarya's got. It's just constantly pumping out damage. The left click is just shredding through everyone. The alternate fire just drops bombs. And finally, after a long fought take, we do have Goose My SR with a 2-minute time bank left after Hanamura.
And not too shabby either. Like, you could have gotten a little bit higher time, but realistically, a 2-minute time bank on Hanamura is very good. Like, I would go home being proud to tell my parents that, you know, it's like, I got a 2-minute time bank on Hanamura, Mom, and they're like, oh, you know, it's like going home and telling them about your report card score. But
you know, you don't need that. We have that at home, honey.
Yeah, basically. But anyway, like, it got to a point where Goose My SR was just had the 6 ultimates. There's only so much you can do about that as a defending team, especially when the Bob goes wide and, you know, a Fire Barrage does have enough DPS to get through a Zenyatta healing. Like, 300 heals per second isn't enough to actually keep up with a Fire Barrage, which is kind of nuts considering like how easy it is to deal with sometimes. But you set it up perfectly with that grab with the Fire Barrage. Nothing's going to be stopping that. And now 2-minute time bank, it's nice that it's over 2 minutes, especially with the time bank changes that happened earlier in the year, where as long as teams have over 2 minutes, they reduce it by the lesser team bank's time bank to get them down to 2 minutes. So they put themselves in a good position. Like, at the very worst, they will lose 7 seconds off their time bank.
And honestly, if you just keep in mind, if they hold to a overtime push, even though they can get a full hold here, if they just hold out for overtime, that enough will be able to get them at least a tie. So you don't need a full defense here. You don't even need to stop them fully on the second point. Just force that overtime for Goose My SR, and you're going to have a chance to get yourself a W next round.
Yeah, and looking at this is something we haven't seen them run. The May and the Ryan. The wall does come out, and the ammo's burned early, but it is, in fact, Yoshi just swinging away on this Ryan.
Yeah, look at that. The Reinhardt's just doing Reinhardt things, and, it's fun when you get a chance to do it, but you got to remember that shield is very crucial to your team, and Speedy going down is not big news for them, but XD Winner keeping that Reinhardt in the fight, making sure Dan is fully supported, because at this point, it feels like Dan is the real carry of the team. This Zarya is absolutely ridiculous on Hanamura.
And MC DJ, even more importantly, staying up in that fight since they used the Resurrection on Speedy, on the Reinhardt. And now it's Speedy, actually, that is sitting pretty at the first ultimate in this game. I don't know if Yoshi's going to be expecting this fight, and if they're caught unaware, they could just lead to a team shatter.
And the Coalescence will be used alongside a Valkyrie, so supports trading out ultimates, and PCW actually going to be the one to find return on investment at the start here. 2 eliminations by the May, 1 by MC DJ on the Forest, so it's going to be DPS versus DPS. Who is better? Who can assert more dominance? And a Reinhardt has entered the challenge, but then MC DJ shows up with the Pharah Barrage and puts that ultimate to beautiful use right there. A second elimination goes down there, taking out King Scar, and even though the offense is looking so good, they might have second questions here, because MC DJ on the Pharah is sending them right back to their spawn.
Does get a little bit caught in the rafters are on point, but it doesn't matter because they're still picking up all of the kills here. It was a very scary hold, but it was a hold nonetheless. Now sitting at 2 minutes. KFP need to figure out how to deal with this. Both fights, they got in, they kind of started winning the early fight, but then ended up losing because they didn't deal with MC DJ properly on the Pharah. Now they're going to have to deal with a 7-man fight as Frosted Toast has a Bob to deal with. And with Joe Marvel making a swap over 2 minutes onto Widow, specifically for MC DJ's Pharah, I'm pretty sure at this point.
Yeah,
it's not good for the rest of the comp. They're running a Brawl composition.
Yeah, it's really questionable, but they're desperate for those picks. And to your point, Pulse, look at that. Joe Marvel, the first one to go down, and then the rest of the House of Cards is starting to crumble.
Yeah, the May has found out, and now they're just having to wait. 1 minute burnt off the clock now, sitting at 1 minute. 10 seconds. PCW really hasn't had a good time to throw this Blizzard. And with Joe Marvel still sitting on this Widow, they don't even realize!
Oh, sneaky Pharah play, trying to get the elimination, does take out the Widowmaker, and then a Resurrect does come out onto Jess. That is a huge Resurrect, keeping both supports in the fight. A Shatter comes down to keep them alive during the Blizzard, and it may have been just enough to preserve their lives, because even though Speedy Gamer has fallen, there is still a defense to be mounted. But when the beat comes down, it's going to make things a lot harder, and PCW has been having their way with this entire defense for so long, and it's only a matter of time until this May blocks off any chance of a defense mounting their comeback and looking to set their sights on the second point.
The ball comes in just for a last-minute stall. You can get a cheeky boop here, or
what?
Take down a pick or two. This might actually be a full hold, but they're not taking down Speedy fast enough on this hamster for my liking.
Speedy did get one cheeky little elimination there. Did also force Crazy Asian to get the long spawn, so it's not much, but it's something. It's a little
take
something.
Everything you can get, especially on the 2CP map, because now 3 minutes on the time bank, it's nigh impossible for KFP to match your own time bank. So, especially with Dan sitting on that grab and Frosted Toast still sitting on the bot, this could very easily turn into a full hold situation for KFP.
Well, we'll have to see if they have that kind of juice in the tank, as Radar Gun actually eats the Graviton Surge, and then the Shatter's thrown down. The defense is in shambles. They don't know what to do, because Yoshi is all of a sudden chasing down their Ashe, and that hammer is coming full force at Ashe. The Fire Strike will finish the job, and with the Coalescence shoring up the health bars here, the offense may have found their opening. But it's going to take a lot more eliminations than just the first 6, because the respawns are coming in from Goose My SR, and they have that spawn advantage even with the May Blizzard being thrown down.
Yeah, the May Blizzard doesn't actually find anyone, but is the May herself getting the picks with the icicles. However, King's Scar is taken down on the Moira, and with most of your healing on, this is starting to look scary for the offense.
Yeah, you have to remember, you have that long spawn for the offense, and they do get their Lucio back, so that healing problem that you brought up has now been covered up for the time being. And Winter getting a little bit too aggressive there. She gets dropped for her troubles. The Mercy not going to be alive to keep anyone else up with the healing, but it's just one member of the whole team that just can't find their way safely onto this point. The Reinhardt charge, the Reinhardt shatter, no eliminations to be found from them. The Resurrect may come in, but yet again, it's just keeping them off for only a little bit longer. But that time bank, it has been drained almost a full minute and a half since they first touched this point here.
Yeah, but a minute and a half less than they wanted, but they still capped both points on Hanamura, which is a feat in itself. Now sitting at a 1 minute 11 time bank versus a 2 minute 7 time bank. This is honestly anyone's game. Goose My SR did have a chance. I think Goose My SR does have a chance to take this just because their point A attack was run with a little bit more finesse. They capped it much earlier, but again, if all they need is 1 or 2 adjustments, you maybe Crazy Asian just doesn't get picked early on, and the whole is completely different. This could very easily be any team's game, or even a draw without much effect on the scoreline.
You're right. I mean, a draw is very much a possibility still. If we see 2 full holds coming out here, that could very much be a draw. If we see 1 take of point A and no progress on point B for both these teams, that's also going to be a draw. So that is very much a possibility here. And, you know, we don't need to touch on it too much, but a draw as a player always makes me feel empty because, you know, it's not a win, it's not a loss, but, I mean, you don't have much to show for all the hard work you put in. You just avoided losing something.
Yeah, it feels like time wasted almost. Like, why do we even play that map, right? But especially in a series like this, keeping your head in is super important. And with the defense not really doing anything surprising from what we've seen so far, MCGJ is actually set up on this flank already, but Joe Marvel's a little bit wiser this time, not deciding to come out on that Widow and just going to play a little bit more into the brawl with PCW on that far pick as well.
MCDJ is just going King Scar hunting, does not find any eliminations, but did get very close to taking that Mercy down. And now Yoshi with this Hammond, we've seen proficiency time and time again from that ball, but Frosted Toast going to open up the fight here with an elimination there, and that's a big one at that, taking down the Genji. Forcing a little crossfire here is the Hammond, and a nice accretion takes Yoshi down. Dan reading Yoshi like a book, and that's going to be a quick lost fight. So fortunately for KFP, they do have a chance to recontest, but these stagger kills are coming in the headshot.
Staggers are brutal. 1 headshot, 14 seconds left. Only 1 person can really touch, and we're going to be looking at Yoshi to do just that. But again, going in through the entire team, causing a touch might cost her her life.
Yeah, Yoshi really is the one with that responsibility. A nice little Hammond knockup will come into play, and that will be 1 down, possibly. No one gets dropped just yet. PCW there does take down Speedy Game, so that's going to be 1 eliminated here by the defense, or for the defense, and now the offense has their opportunity to strike. The Fair Barrage does come out, but no eliminations will be found. The Dragon Strike comes through afterwards, and even though there was a brief moment where it looked like we were going to have KFP taking this point, it's a defense that holds strong here by Goose My SR.
A defense that holds strong indeed. PCW honestly getting a little bit unlucky with that barrage positioning, just a little bit too high up, and some of the rockets actually hitting the rafters instead of the Moira that was coalescing just below her. So it's a little bit of an unfortunate, but again, it's something you deal with, especially when playing far on indoor points like Hanamura A.
I mean, Hanamura A is going to be possibly my least favorite map by the end of Overwatch. I mean, you know, considering all 2 CPs are generally the ones I look at as they're very hit or miss, but Hanamura point A, it's just I've been playing a lot of flex support, and when a Widowmaker or a Hanzo just hops up in that window, it makes my day a living hell.
Yeah, absolute living nightmare. And honestly too, like Hanamura, is a very difficult map to play. Like even more so, in my opinion, than Horizon, or it's kind of up there with Paris, in my opinion. If you're not running like some symmetric cheese or have a absolutely stellar Widow play, it can just be very, very difficult to find what you want in fights and just very hard to get through the choke at all. Now this defense, though,
Yep.
they are in fact going to be running the Widow and the Ashe to try and shut down all these sight lines, but a Widow and an Ashe playing into this potential Symmetra is a little bit scary.
Yeah, and it's interesting because with this Symmetra, they're basically going to be splitting their team up into 4 and 2. And oh man, Joe Marvel putting that pick to very good use. And I love the teleport location right here. It's the safest spot they could have put it. No chance of them having that destroyed, and they can have this rotation come in.
Yeah, and that one fight might change the whole course of this game too.
Exactly. I mean, oh, Dan getting very low right there. Barely kept alive thanks to Jess's healing, excuse me there. And Speedy actually gonna take down 1 here, make that 2, the charge comes in, a 3rd, my god, Speedy gets everyone off the point, and that's gonna be it. That's gonna be all that she wrote for Hanamura. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to a game 5.
We go in map 5, baby, and what a way to go into it too. Just all night, we've seen Speedy get some very aggressive plays going off, whether it be like charges or just kind of mindlessly swinging to the other team. This is the only way I wanted to see it happen.
Oh my
the
God.
Pin, almost taking 2. Had the Orisa not fortified, that would have been an absolutely hilarious play of the game.
I love that play right there. The charge through the teleporter. I mean, just before broadcast, we were talking about all the possibilities for a Symmetra teleport. You got Diva Bombs, and now you got Reinhardt's charging horizontally right through you.
Yeah, and it's just been what a game too for like Speedy. Speedy has been doing some really, really silly, to put it the least, stuff, but you know, when it works out like that, you love to see it.
Yeah, well, before we can get to this game 5 and find out who's going to book their ticket for the grand finals, we got to take ourselves to a short break. So don't go anywhere, because when we come back, it's Nepal, game 5. We're back now, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for coming back here to game 5 of our PS4 semifinals. It's been a long one, but finally we're here to see who is going to the grand finals between KFP and Goose My SR. I'm Beanies, joined alongside my buddy here, Pulse. And Pulse, we just got word that ADL won the other semifinal, so we already have one of our 2 grand finalists sitting in that finals.
Yeah, and I can't say I'm too surprised. ADL was the team that was sitting at first seed with 4 wins, 0 losses. So again, very impressive, but taking out the Fight for Redemption team that made it back in, they will be, in fact, the first team confirmed for the finals. Now, Game 5, going to Nepal, KFP versus Goose My SR, everything is on the line for that second spot in the grand finals between these 2 teams right now. And Nepal, honestly, I couldn't have asked for a better map to see it, because the way Nepal plays, every individual sub-map or point or whatever you like to call it, plays so differently, and I am really happy that it's going to come down to this just because of the versatility we've seen from both these teams and what they want to run. And it's not like a map where, for example, like King's Row, it's going to be one of those maps where it's like, yeah, let's just run Zarya the whole time, right? Well, Nepal is one of those ones where the tank lines benefit from adapting on points. And these 2 tank lines have been incredibly different all night.
Yeah, I mean, what comes to mind first for me is the difference between Nepal Sanctum and Village. You got Sanctum, this map that's, kind of close quarters, but it does have long sight lines, and it does have that environmental kill possibility. More attuned to the likes of an Orisa Sigma, maybe, an Orisa Hog. And then you look at Village, like what's coming up on your screen right now. And Village, more often than not, you'll see that Ryan Zarya tank lineup, which I'm expecting to see, if not that exact lineup, maybe some variation of it here from these 2 teams.
Well, there's also even been quite a fair bit of thinking back to like triple DPS, or even in more recent memory, Sanctum has been a map where people sometimes like to throw people curveball and, run Hammond on it. And Yoshi has been playing quite a bit of Hammond, to put it lightly, tonight, and honestly has been doing very well.
There you go.
Yeah, and while we don't see Hammond nearly as much on Village, this is one of those maps where people really like to experiment with triple DPS back when that was still an option available, where you just have a Hammond sort of run through point, knock everyone out, and then have your Pharah, have your hit scan player, maybe a Somber in the back, just ready to knock everyone as soon as they come out with damage. So it looks like that's a little bit of the approach that we're going to be taking this time. However, it is going to be a little bit light on healing. Running with just a Zen, Mercy, and Control can be a little risky sometimes, especially playing into an Ana and a Moira.
Exactly, that Ana-Moira combo, it doesn't have the defensive capability that a Zenyatta Transcendence ultimate would have, but it does have very fast charging ultimates and very aggressive heroes. And now you're seeing, unfortunately, that those 2 supports cannot keep their heroes up, as KFP have been able to get 2 quick eliminations, and before the point even unlocks, they're poised to take control of it.
Yeah, but again, you see the Zarya thinking about coming to try and touch point, but Dan realizes what a waste that would be if they were to die there before all 6 came back, and regroups with the team. However, it is a Dynamite onto Joe Marvel that's going to open up a little bit of space here.
Yeah, and Dan really has been a prime member of this team. Seeing Goose My SR come back in the series after being down 2-1, it was off the back of that Zarya play by Dan, so he really has to make sure he keeps himself in the fight. Oh my gosh, it's like watching Speedy swat a fly, just taking down PCW in the middle of that barrage, giving a nice bit of ultimate economy control over to the defense here as Goose My SR take control of the percent battle and the ultimate battle.
Yeah, and after that first quick fight loss, you see the instant swap to Kree Ashe and how good it's working for them now. They're just keeping PCW at bay, making sure that they're watching Yoshi.
Oh, yeah.
And Yoshi is taken out super early in this fight once again.
MC DJ taking 2 members down from the opposing team and giving Goose My SR a nice little bit of room to work with here, as no push is coming in for the time being from Kung Fu Pandas, as they're going to have to kick back and hold down for the time being, as they have no chance of pushing through without all 6 members. And oh, look at this, a little sneaky action. Oh, he gets in the back line, but that stun does come through, and the Ana was able to keep herself alive, so no eliminations to be traded out just yet until Crazy Asian has something to say about it, and he takes 1 down. The blade comes out, and that's going to be 1 from Joe Marvel, 2 from Joe Marvel, 3 from Joe Marvel, and he gets the 4th with the melee, making up for those blades from earlier on, dominating his opponents.
Yeah, and that was the blade Joe Marvel has dreamed about all series, just finally able to take down the entire team, really, in just one quick fashion. Now it's going to be Radar Gun sitting online with this Graviton. This is going to be their key ultimate to stop this offense from the side of Goose My SR. They have a Bob to get in to cause a lot of pressure and a more Coalescence to work with. If Yoshi can find some bombs here, though, maybe set up Radar Gun for a big Graviton, this would be the fight.
Well, Joe Marvel taking down Dan. That's going to be crucial here as KFP taking down one of the carries here for Goose My SR. And with PCW now showing up on the Ash big time, it's just going to be taking control of the point and really just KFP looking to maximize ultimate gain from the end of this fight.
More importantly, Joe Marvel stays alive in that fight too. And Jesse is taken down by the ball rolling around in their backline. This is going to be massive percentage build up from KFP now. Especially without anyone dropping, you do see quite a few checkmark coming online for Goose My SR. They have the Shatter, they have the Grab to match, but they also have both DPS ults and a Coalescence. So the big thing for KFP right now is to make sure they use this Transcendence wisely. If they can use it to counter 2, maybe 3 ults at once, then that would set them up for a win on this map.
XD winner can't get to MCDJ in time, and that's going to be the Coalescence trying to keep the rest of the team alive through this Graviton Surge. The blade comes out, but the Shatter is there in response, and then a Graviton Surge and Transcendence are used one after another, and with all these ultimates being used, only one elimination is found through this whole fight, and it gets resurrected. But Frosted Toast and Dan doing everything they can to keep their team in this, because now with overtime ticking, it's all in the court of KFP. But it's going to be Goose My SR winning this fight and extending this round for one more engage.
And they used everything to do it. All 5 ults they had available, they used. But, you know, when it comes down to 99% and you can't give up the point, sometimes that's what it takes. Now, Woeful Jesse is going to be the only one online for Goose My SR with an ultimate. And when you're relying on a Soul Nano to take this, it's going to get a little scary. But again, KFP have to touch. Yoshi is going to have to roll through the point here in just a second. But they need to be careful and not feed their life for it.
Yeah, well, Yoshi's going to get that overtime ticking, and now we have the final fight of the round as Joe Marvel does take down the support, make that 2 supports gang taken down. Joe Marvel gets 3 members, and it's actually just Joe Marvel rolling through the entire lineup of Goose My SR, and it's just going to be a big fat goose egg here left for Goose My SR after the end of this round, because it's going to be a 1-0 score lead here by Kung Fu Pandas.
And honestly, a very, very scary game for KFP there. They were pretty much at a deficit for the entire round just until that last fight with the Transcendence. But the Transcendence was good. It stopped Shatter, it stopped Grab, and even a third ult. But again, Goose My SR just invested so much in that fight to win it because they had to, and they put themselves in a position where they couldn't get picked. They had to make sure they used the Nano perfectly just to stay alive in that fight, that they found themselves in such a scary position that they really didn't need to force themselves into had they played a little bit smarter in the preceding fight. But now it's going to be Nepal Shrine. PCW once again is going to be rolling out on this Pharah. Joe Marvel will be rolling out on this Genji. And the Symmetra staying, so I have to believe that there's going to be a Symmetra setting up camp on point.
And Symmetra really can do a lot of work here on this point. It can be really difficult to get through that chokehold when Symmetra turrets are just crowding the entire thing. And Frosted Toast really going to have an opportunity to control this point if done properly. And unfortunately now the turrets were set a little late, so not going to find any value from them. But MCDJ picking up the slack, plentiful, taking down Crazy Asian, forcing only 1 support left here for the entire side of Kung Fu Pandas, and that's going to be very difficult to keep up as MCDJ now just going to have free reign over everyone else.
Yeah, and this is going to be a very quick early point take and early point percentage building right now for Goose My SR. They do have they capped it basically as soon as it came out and have 20% already building, and they have forced Yoshi off of the ball just by playing the Symmetra. So now it's a very scary situation for KFP. They're kind of in a similar spot as last map, where they're just at a deficit and they're going to be having to fight tooth and nail this entire time to get back up. But you know, PCW, look at how much damage they've done already. Already at 90% for Barrage. They might not be expecting this.
Well, PCW now hits that 100% marker, and when that happens, you know that the ultimate's coming out soon after, with 2 eliminations coming in there by PCW's Barrage. A charge, possibly getting something to salvage for Speedy, but unfortunately, Joe Marvel stops that in its tracks, with the point finally going over the KFP. They're making their mark for the first time.
Yeah, and this Kree has been helping out the FAR quite a bit as well and shutting down this FAR, but again, sitting at a deficit of about 35%. Speedy Gamers is going to try and find a way to get in here just to flip this point back very quickly, but is kind of wasting a lot of shield health in the process. You need to get up there and land a Shatter to take this back for your team.
Yeah, that Shatter can be a lot easier said than done when dealing with your opposing Reinhardt. It's really just a battle of wits at that point. And Yoshi, used to the Hammond, you gotta wonder how that Reinhardt play is gonna be. And with a Coalescence in your face, it's even more difficult to keep that composure. But the charge was timed beautifully, trading out main tanks. So now neither team has that available to them until Goose My SR uses that Resurrect, gets the team back into position, and now the point soon after going to be under their control.
They still haven't flipped it yet, actually, though. So by the time it actually does flip, you will see this contest get KFP actually to above percentage that Goose My SR was sitting at. And it's a little scary and might matter in the end, but for now, you have basically 4 ultimates for the defending team in Goose My SR. You have both tank ults, both DPS ults. This is going to be a very hard fight to win if you're KFP. Like, you need to find some crazy nano Ryan play going off in the background, but you can't rely on the Shatter here, and you have to be wary of these Symmetra turrets.
Yeah, you really have to. The Shatter ultimate is not something you can rely on, but when it hits, my god, does it hit big. Yoshi taking down one, actually. Joe Marvel going to be the one with the ultimate that hits big, dropping Speedy Gamer. And with 2 members falling, it's going to be the rest of them following suit soon after. And, you know, it's just like a game of ping pong at this point. Just constant back and forth between these teams. You take the point, then I take it right back. You take it right back, and I get it right back from you. And yet again, we will see the point go over into the hands of Kung Fu Pandas.
Yeah, and again, a very cheap fight win, too. Like, some of these fights have been going towards one team or another without a whole lot of ultimates being invested, but I think that was the best case scenario for KFP. They more or less only used Deadeye and Shatter, and they were able to turn it. And now you still see the Goose My SR. They have plenty of ults to match the 4 ultimates from both sides, but no Bob, and this Shatter is going to have to be huge if you want to make an impact.
Yeah, the Shatter has to be huge, but the Graviton Surge comboed with that Barrage is even bigger. 2 are going to be found out and eliminated off of that, but Jessie picking off 2 as well. The support taking damage into her own hands, and that will be all that she wrote for KFP's defense here, because it looks like the team in red is fighting back, and they are fighting hard. They are coming in strong, and they are going to make sure that we are going to a map 3, unless we see PCW have anything to say about it, and he's doing a great job at that.
Stagger comes in very late from the Genji, unable to hold on percentage, and now it's Respawn all in favor of Goose My SR. They do have people on point, and they do have Barrage, and with Crazy Asian falling, I think that just might be it.
Yeah, I mean, Frosted Toast getting 1, and then Dan really just having this left side all to himself. You know, no one else is contesting it. You come up to contest it, the bubble's right there. Reinhardt can't put out the damage. Everyone's just lost and confused, and the chaos that is stalling out this point usually goes in the favor of the team with the Hammond knocking everyone around, but unfortunately this time around, Radar Gun doesn't have the same kind of magic that Yoshi's Hammond does, but I guess it does have more survivability, because, I mean, Radar Gun's just still going, and just still, now going the other way, going back around the other way now, and that's higher gameplay. The Shatter, though, is huge, and the dash through 2 by Joe Marvel. Oh my gosh, I can't believe they're pulling this out. It could be done. It might actually happen. And oh, we let ourselves believe for just a second, but then the eliminations come in from Goose My SR, and even though there was a sliver of hope there for the turnaround to come by Kung Fu Pandas, Pulse, Game 5 is going to round 3.
Game 5, round 3. I couldn't have asked for a closer match for these 2 teams, honestly. The Hammond, was very entertaining to watch, but it gets to a certain point where it's so hard to flip that back, especially once respawns are in the other team's favor, and really a 300 health Hammond that's already used their shield isn't going to last for much longer. The Shatter was very good, I'll give him that, but it would have been near impossible to turn that back once it got to a certain point. And now, coming into Sanctum, I gotta wonder if the Hammond from Speedy is gonna be coming out as well, because it's not something we've seen them default to a lot, whereas Yoshi's Hammond is something that we've come to expect. Both teams, it looks like... Okay. So I am proven wrong in that we do get to see a Zarya Hog here, but again, Hammond, very much a sleeper pick on Sanctum. You can kind of get in, boot people around, find some people into the pit.
Yeah, I mean, and when you have someone like Yoshi running the Hammond, it's going to lend itself to making a few more big plays than other Hammonds. I mean, we've been exposed to Yoshi's prowess on that champ, and I'm not expecting anything different here.
Yeah, and honestly, this whole setup, you just see Speedy trying to find some way in, and Winter's res is already used, but Crazy Asian is the first person to fall.
Yeah, and now a nice little boot possibly coming in there, going to take down PCW, and yes, that will be MCDJ taking down an Ashe. You'll love to see it as a Pharah player, and with 3 members standing in the tight little corridor there, they're just sitting ducks for this Pharah and Roadhog until the point is finally captured here by the side of Goose My SR.
Yeah, and I don't think, honestly, KFP, I don't think they expected the Hog to come out seriously. You do see the Sigma, so they do have a shield to work with, but just the Hog kind of roaming around lurking is another threat to be aware of, and MCDJ has been doing a lot with these boops to get people out of position into the open so that it just takes so much poke from the Hog, from the Pharah, from the Ashe, everyone.
Yeah, well, Frosty having a little bit of trouble landing shots there. It does connect a few, but going to have to land a few more to make sure that these eliminations are finished up, because, I mean, you compare the 2 Ashes, and PCW just, I feel like, has that Mercy pocket constantly available to them. Whereas on the other hand, Frosted Toast has to share that Mercy pocket with the Pharah, but obviously it's not really mattering much because they still get the eliminations first.
Yeah, and you see KFP, they can't even get in here. They do have some ultimates to work with coming online just about now with PCW's Bob. Both support ults coming online, but Joe Marvel more or less has been playing Mystery Heroes and hasn't been able to build up to ult percentage, and they do get the Ashe, but the res is still good and in there for their team.
Yeah, the Bob does come down afterwards, and really nothing going to be found from that Bob. I mean, maybe it pushes them off and gets a few shots here and there, but nothing good to speak about. And now the Hammond following suit with a nano boost thrown there, and the beautiful purple grenade thrown down by Crazy Asian. A fight-winning anti-grenade right there, but that Pharah barrage also has fight-winning potential, and it takes down one alongside Frosted Toast Bob, and the ultimate usage is being shown very well here by the side of Goose My SR, because they have only 15% of the point left to defend Pulse. They're going to be winning this whole entire series in 10 seconds.
Yeah, and you do see Yoshi get the boop on Sigma, which is the start they need. PCW is running out on the Soldier, though, to try and be a factor in this last fight.
Yeah, I mean, that's really just desperation at this point. You want to make sure you get as much value as you can, and PCW gets 2 with that Helix rocket. Very nicely done. The whole Hog, even with the purple thrown down, he tries to push out of that corridor and gets killed for his trouble. Overall, a nice retake here by KFP, but remember, they have to win every single fight for the rest of this map.
It has to be a perfect defense, and with Joe finding 3 people on him early in this fight, it might not be the fight, but Radar Gun is able to punish the Moira that goes for that kill. So now it will be a little bit of a reset, give the defense some time to build up their ults, maybe KFP can get in here. But Speedy has made the swap over to Orisa, which is, honestly, I can't ask for anything better. MCDJ has gone over the Junkrat. They will not be fighting to get their Pharah inside this Sanctum anymore. And with a defense that is held together by, you know, just a couple strings and a lot of hope right now, one good double shield push is all you need to end this.
DCW takes down Frosted Toast, and that was so well done, so accurate. But then MCDJ just jumps right into the face of that Soldier and takes him down as well. Remember, we cannot afford to see Kung Fu Pandas lose any more fights, and they have to get these eliminations. But Frosted Toast and MCDJ are coming up absolutely massive. And when you have a Yoshi dancing around the backline trying to find any kind of elimination, it's going to be really difficult to keep that point under control. And with Goose My SR taking the point back, The Coalescence comes out, and that's going to be all that she wrote for the semifinals. Goose My SR books their ticket to the GGNA PS4 Grand Finals.
Yeah, and a very close fight, but again, they had their stuff together for Sanctum. They came out firing, and they absolutely just held the fort on that last point and came out really strong. KFP did make a lot of the adjustments that we thought as casters they needed to make over the course of the series. They really showed up, but in the end, they just didn't have the answer for the Sanctum.
Exactly, and I mean, you know that it's getting real desperate when your main tank willingly swaps over to Orisa. That's how you know Speedy really wanted to win. They said, you know what? I'm willingly going to give up that Reinhardt I'm running and play that Orisa and make sure my team gets the W. And they were given that victory. So well earned there by Goose My SR, as they're going to be putting themselves, as I said, in the grand finals tomorrow, where they're going to be taking on ADL.
Yeah, and you're kind of joking about the Orisa thing, but honestly, you got to play Hog for half a map. What more could you ask for? So Goose My SR will be taking this in a very close fashion, in having two control maps both go 2-1 score lines. And again, there are a couple things that I think they would need to solve going against ADL, just because of how dominant ADL has looked against so many teams. But for tonight, they really get to celebrate and party hard until they show up to their match tomorrow. So
exactly. And, tomorrow is going to be the grand finals, ladies and gentlemen. We do have ADL taking on Goose My SR in what should be a heck of a matchup. It's going to take place here at 8 p.m. on the Elohell Esports Overwatch channel. So you don't want to miss any of the action, and you want to make sure you see the culmination of our PS4 Get Good tournament. And so before we sign off, for one last time, I've been Beanies. That's been Pulse, and we'll see you later.